how we've done. This is, and we've got a fly. So this is how we normally do winter maintenance. This is the old way. You spread salt on an ice or snow surface. Why? Because if you drop salt on a dry road, it's just going to bounce right off the road and do you no good. So we wait until there's some moisture on the road, we drop salt on it. I don't have time to go into my snow chemistry, which is where I almost set something on fire, but dry salt does nothing. It does absolutely nothing. It has to mix with water, which forms a brine, before it can melt anything. So what happens, the salt particles auger down through the snow or the ice pack, picking up water, forming brine as it goes, and when it hits the roadway, that's where this thin layer of brine forms. If you think salt brine is new, I see Mark back there from District 9, you've been doing it all along, Jack. You've just been doing it a little inefficiently. So salt augers down, it forms brine at the road surface, then it starts to break that bond. Car tires come along and mash it up, provide a little heat, kneading action. Then we come along with our plow and scrape it off. That's how we do it normally. What we've been experimenting with brine is, let's go right to Jump Street. Let's make our salt brine ahead of time. Let's make it in the perfect concentration, and let's put it on the road before the snow and ice gets there. That's all the technical time we have on that. All right. So, how do you do salt brine? First of all, you got to make it. Okay? It doesn't come natural to us. Even if you pumped it out of the Pacific Ocean, that's not enough salt for you. That is nothing more than a glorified hot tub with no heat. You throw salt in it, and you throw water in it, and you swish it around, and you measure it until it gets to the right concentration, and then you ship it. You can do the same thing with a kiddie wading pool and a canoe paddle and a hydrometer. It's just not efficient. So what we have here, the system is automated. We just dump salt in it, hit the button, and off it goes. So this is what you need to make it. You need a way to transport it. Not a milk truck like this. We use modern milk trucks, milk tankers, 5,000 gallon milk tankers, and we take it from where we make it to our outlying garages, where you need to store it. Now, here's what we call a tank farm. Those are I think those are 4,000 gallon tanks. We're storing it. This actually shows one of our newer systems, how compact it can be. This is our brine maker here. This is our little control room. It's nothing more than an ice shanty. And here's our tank farm. And we squeezed it into the side of an existing salt shed. Now you're saying, well, you've just given up all that salt storage space. Yep, we sure did. But you'll see later on, we're saving so much salt, we can afford to give that space away. In fact, this brine has eliminated our sand. We've taken our sand sheds and converted them to salt sheds. So we gained storage space without spending a penny. And some of those tanks we got from District 9 before you guys got smart enough and quit selling them to us. Here's another tank farm system where you can see this stuff does not have to be inside. You know, hello, it's salt brine. It's not supposed to freeze, so you leave it outside. If you make it in the summer and leave it out in the sun, for the first few months, it's actually going to have thermal storage in it. So, and the propane tank is actually for heating the ice shanty. Has nothing to do with brine. So, you need a way to make it. You got to transport it, you got to store it, and then you got to have a way to spread it. Well, we're cheap. We admit it. Some people just say we're Vermonters. No, we're cheap. We're taking our milk tanker trucks, which we use in the summer to wash bridges, and normally they sit the rest of the year. Because what else are you going to do with one if you're in AOT? So we take that milk truck. Now we're using it in the winter to transport our brine, and we put a spray bar on the back of it, which was nothing more than sewer pipe and a swimming pool hose, and we spray our roads with it. It looks like this. we have a new term. We call it painting our roads. If you see white dust on your roads, and I'm sorry, New Hampshire, but I was in your state last week, and I saw white dust blowing around, that's money blowing away. You want the salt on the road, but the hard part is keeping it there. Well, with this brine, it paints itself onto the road. It makes like an eggshell color. Some of you, Steve was saying he saw streaks going down the road. So we paint the road. Now we have our brine on the road where we want it. Here's another example where the guys made a homemade rig. You don't have to use a milk tanker. You can use any tank you want. Those of you who have gravel roads, you already have one of these things. Ours is gravity fed, and it has a string that comes up to the driver's window so they can pull the valve on and off at a stoplight. You've got a lot better system than that already. It's just what do you put in it. Little tidbit, sodium chloride works just as good as calcium chloride for dust control, and it's a whole lot cheaper. And if you think calcium chloride is environmentally benign, it's not. Nor is magnesium chloride. Those are heavy metals. So they're all bad. You got to use them all as efficiently as you possibly can. But anyway, you can spray with one of those rigs. Here's another rig. This system back here is basically making a slurry out of dry salt and salt brine. And when you put that on the road, trust me, if you make oatmeal like they make oatmeal in my house, you can throw it on a vertical wall and it'll stay there the rest of the day. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make this into a slurry where we can throw it on the road and it will stay. And we get our salt brine on the road under the storm, and the dry particles act as time-release particles for us as the salt brine starts to wear away. So we're trying two different technologies there. The question is it working? Now Stu's been keeping his eye on me since he met me because he knows about the building that burned. But he's also been watching this experiment. I picked one district to pick on, so it's not 9 this time, it's District 8. But you can see this blue graph here is salt, and the burgundy one here is sand. You can see that back in the winter starting 97, 98, the winter of 98, 99, 99, 2000, 2001, these guys are up here around 20,000 tons of salt. Think of that. 20,000 tons of salt in one district in Vermont. And Angela wonders why she's seeing so much salt showing up in St. Albans Bay. This was a period, one thing you need to understand with winter maintenance and that three-way balance, a lot of the problems are between the ears and not in technology. You need to understand psychology is just as important as technology. We had a rudderless ship up here. They had a leadership vacuum. They had every excuse in the book why they needed to use so much salt. We have JP, we have worse storms, it was all a bunch of excuses. But you're good at it, I'm good at it, we might as well admit it, we're friends. You can always find an excuse for why you're doing what you're doing. Well, what we did is we came in and we started to push, we being me. Started to push. You cannot convince me that your winter in Northwest Vermont is twice as bad as the Northeast Kingdom or anywhere else. So I started to push their salt down, and you can see that we achieved a level state here of about 10,000 tons of salt. But you can also see there was a teeter-totter effect. Their sand use came up. And the bottom line was the guys in the trucks were feeling, I gotta drop something. I gotta be doing something. And so that was a psychological effect. And you notice I didn't do a very good job of touching that one. They stayed at a steady state of about 10,000 tons of salt, 10,000 yards of sand, and they were pretty much happy. And I couldn't really influence that anymore. So did we help Angela? We reduced the salt, but we added sand, and you heard both, I'm sorry, Angela, Karen, am I getting it right?
This is the Karen.
Karen, Karen was explaining how much sand is an environmental bugaboo too. So I might have helped Angela, but I didn't help Karen. How did I get that right one of these times? Until we get out here, and now all of a sudden you see things are starting to happen. And what you see here in the winter of 08, 09, that is when we first started to crank up the salt brine. We had a pilot project in 08, 09, and in that year, we used less than 5,000 cubic yards of sand. And we're talking about 750 lane miles of road. And that's a significant piece of real estate in just this one district. And we reduced their sand use by half. Their salt use stayed about the same in a pilot project. Now last winter, in the winter of 09-10, look what happens. Cratered their sand. Cratered their sand. Almost can't measure it. And that was because they had ramped up salt brine over the entire district, and they reduced their salt.
State roads seem to be worse now than they ever were before, though.
Question and answers come in a few minutes. We'll talk about that. I want that question. I want that question. Is it possible to produce a better, safer road using less sand, less salt, or less money? Well, I can tell you, in the districts that use salt brine is not a slam dunk. You've got to bring your brain to work with you. There were times last winter where we absolutely blew it. We were learning, and the roads were worse than ever. But when it works, when you know how to use it, we absolutely produced a better road, and we showed we used less sand and less salt to do it. I have not cracked the accounting to prove the money, because our accounting system does not know how to handle liquid salt. We feel that we saved money. I just can't prove it to the accountants. The state roads seem worse than ever. First of all, last winter, it was only done in one small portion of the state. The other districts weren't using it, and we were using it as a pilot project. I will say this, when it worked, it really, really worked. Let me use the Thanksgiving storm, just this past storm, as an example. And I'll tell you how it can work, and sometimes it can't. In the Burlington area, Thanksgiving Day, the guys went out at 9 o'clock and they painted the roads. That truck went out at 9 p.m. Thanksgiving Day, they painted the roads. At midnight to 1 in the morning, we had that heavy freezing rain came in. They went out at 1 o'clock in the morning with just dry salt. Remember, they're putting it on a wet road. They had almost no accidents. They had no problems. They used hardly any salt, and what they came back with was salt brine saved us. Now this district, with the oatmeal, they waited until the storm started. They went out at 1 o'clock in the morning with their oatmeal, laying the oatmeal down as the freezing rain was coming, and it didn't work. And they had to add more and more and more salt. So what we learned is, if you're going to use this technology, you've got to get out there ahead of it. Otherwise, it's not going to help you.